Welcome to MEGJC 101, a podcast about the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and our contribution to building a resilient Jamaica. I'm your host, Danny Clark. Come, look it talk. Welcome back, all you awesome MEGJC 101 listeners. You ever just sit down and say, boy, me want one house and a piece of land. Me want to start out my life, have a nice little house and a nice little piece of land? I know I have. You see, this ministry is the powerhouse behind all things related to houses and land. Today, we will be exploring the housing portfolio, particularly security of tenure or land regularization. Access to adequate housing is a basic need and is important to everyone's health and well-being. The MEGJC's housing portfolio considers Jamaica's housing needs or ability to create quality housing opportunities for all, as well as address the issue of squatting. The housing portfolio consists of the Housing Management Branch, the Social Services Unit, the Rent Services Unit, the Squatter Management Unit, the Housing Policy Research and Monitoring Branch, and of course, our focus for today, the Land Administration and Management section. So, stay tuned for an insightful episode as we examine the intricacies of land regularization or security of tenure and the work being done by the Land Administration and Management section. From policy to practice, we're going to cover it all.
I feel so good. I feel happy from the day I start.
Anybody who seeking assistance for a house at this time, talk to the MP and ask the Prime Minister. It work for me, so it might work for you.
Thanks to the government who just make this thing a reality.
This program is part of the government's initiative to ensure that there is equity in the housing sector. What do we mean by equity? The intention of government policy is to ensure that every strata of the Jamaican society is able to access housing. So it shouldn't matter what your level of income is. It shouldn't matter what your social status is. It shouldn't matter what endowments you have, meaning what assets you start life with. Every Jamaican should have an opportunity to access housing solutions, shelter solutions that are affordable and of a particular standard. It is the social conscience of the society that every Jamaican should live in a shelter solution that keeps them safe from the elements, from weather, that keeps them secure, and in which they can enjoy life.
Now guys, let's shift gears and delve into a specific section of the MEGJC, the Land Administration and Management section. And who better to guide us through this than the one and only Mr. Vincent Haldane. He is the Senior Director of Land Administration Management. Mr. Haldane, welcome to MEGJC 101.
Thank you.
Could you just start us off by telling us what are the key functions of your branch?
Okay, the Land Administration Management section. The principal function is to acquire lands for housing schemes, as well as to regularize settlements, acquiring lands to regularize the settlements. We also conduct valuations. We also deal with squatter management. We also engage commissioned land surveyors to do surveys on the ministry's properties, among other things.
All right, you guys do a whole lot. All right, so we're going to now be talking about regularizing. You mentioned that your section deals with regularizing land. Now, how does the section work towards regularizing lands for the public's benefit?
Well, the process of regularizing is really bringing persons to a point that they are able to purchase lots and obtain a title. Now, these persons are informal settlers. But what we require from the ministry's standpoint is that there are paved roads, access to electricity, and access to potable water. Those settlements for which we do regularization is where the roads have already been put in. Sometimes it is the member of parliament or the council that put in the road, and then we proceed to engage a commission land surveyor to do the subdivision survey. Then after that, the plan goes to the legal unit for them to obtain titles, and then we do the valuations thereafter, and then the marketing by our social services unit.
So the ministry offers kind of a one-stop shop for persons who really want to regularize their land. That's quite interesting. So if somebody's out there now who they're living in an informal settlement and they want to regularize their land, they just call the land admin branch?
Yes, they can call the ministry and ask for the land administration unit and let us be aware of that settlement so that we can do an investigation to determine if it can be formalized and if it is in fact owned by the Minister of Housing or government.
All right, Sir Haldane, infrastructure planning and logistics are crucial when dealing with the government or dealing with government-owned lands. How do site visits factor into this process and the challenges your team sometimes face? I hear about, some heroic moments out there on the field. Tell us about those.
Well, it's actually not so bad, But when we do go out, we assess whether or not the property can be regularized. We have to ensure that the houses are laid out in an organized manner and that each person or each householder will have direct access to their house. So we don't want for Mary to reach her yard. She have to walk through Tom's yard. So everybody must have their own independent access. Some of the challenges we face are that the access ways are too small, meaning the road is too narrow, and sometimes there are 2 or 3 persons living in the same yard, having houses in the same yard, but we are not able to subdivide it based on how it is laid out. So those are some of the challenges. Many of these areas are volatile areas, but we normally would make contact with the political representative or other persons who will chaperone us through the area.
Mr. Haldane, you mentioned that sometimes you may have persons who they're living on the same parcel of land, and so it's difficult for you to subdivide the land. But how do you work around that though?
Well, what we normally do is to just lease them their sections.
All right, so the ministry would lease the section. So then you're saying that there's no excuse at all for somebody not to move towards securing land tenure.
Yes, but we don't want to broad brush it like that, because sometimes persons are occupying properties that there are environmental concerns or considerations, and as such we are not able to regularize them. So we do have settlements like that in which the best option would be to relocate them.
All right, so it's still an option. All right, I know that we should be talking about something else, but talk to us about the relocation. What does that look like?
Well, the relocation can take years, because first you have to identify a suitable site to which the persons can be relocated. Then you have to develop that site, and then persons would have to build houses in order to be able to relocate. So it does take quite a while, 5 to 6 years.
And that relocation is not on the part of the government itself, meaning that the financial burden, is it shared or is it on the person who needs to go and build their house somewhere else?
Well, the initial financial burden is that of the government, because the government will have to find the money to put in the necessary infrastructure. In some cases, the government also build the houses or give a grant towards the persons towards building the house. So government does have a critical role financially in such matters.
Okay, all right, quite interesting. And I know that our listeners, especially those who are interested in this particular area, they're really getting some good insights during this discussion. Now, the squatter management unit branch, or the squatter management unit, they handle issues related to informal settlements and unauthorized occupants on government-owned land. Can you clarify the distinction though between your section and the squatter management branch? How How that work?
All right, the squatter management unit is a policy-driven unit that is geared towards recommending policies to guide government entities owning lands on how to address squatting. So it really plays a policy role, also a monitoring role, whereby they receive reports from the various entities and collate it to determine what is the squatting situation island-wide. The Land Administration Management Unit, on the other hand, we deal with the properties owned by the Minister of Housing. So we are action-oriented, we have to serve notices, we have to do demolition works to clear the properties of persons who have gone on illegally. So that's the difference. We are responsible as one of those entities that Squatter Management Unit monitors to regulate our lands.
Okay, all right. Going back a little, because you just mentioned something about demolition. What is the usual response when you go to a site and you tell somebody, you serve a notice and say that, we have to come and demolish your property because we may see some very lavish and grand housing solutions on some of these lands? What is the usual response to that?
Well, nobody would take kindly to you coming to bulldoze your house, even though, yes, you didn't build it on land that you own. So yes, there's some amount of opposition, but usually we go to the site with the security forces, and so we are adequately protected. Remember, in one situation at Hague, we weren't able to bulldoze the house because the person went inside the house and refused to come out. So we had to leave that particular house. So that is the situation when we go out there. So persons, some understand, and others, yes, they are disappointed about the whole exercise because, of course, they are losing their house.
Well, before we move on to the question, what advice then, Mr. Haldane, would you give to those who are listening, who know that they're living on government-owned lands and they've not yet called into the MEGJC to deal with their security of tenure, to ensure that they're doing the thing the correct way? What advice would you have to them? And they're building currently, going up 3 stories and more.
Well, I would advise them to, first of all, stop the building and check with the Land Administration Unit. They can always call us to determine whether or not action will be taken to regularize the occupants, or they might be building in an area for which government definitely needs the land for future use and will not allow a settlement there now. So they need to call and find out what is the situation before they do further investment in the house there.
Thank you, Sir Haldane. Now, how does your branch work to guarantee that individuals have security of tenure within the context of government-owned lands?
Although you use the term government-owned lands, I'm going to expand it to include government schemes, because there are some schemes that we have for which the acquisition process was never completed. We call them legacy schemes, such as a Seaview Phase 2. And so one of our responsibilities is to complete the acquisition of these lands and ensure that they are transferred to the Minister of Housing. We do this by private treaty or by compulsory acquisition, and we often have to go the compulsory acquisition route because the owners are deceased and there is no grant of probate in relation to a will, and there is no letter of administration granted for the relatives to take ownership. So we have to go the compulsory route to gain ownership. Sometimes the properties are owned by other government entities, and so the land admin unit has to take steps to get them transferred to the Minister of Housing so that the regularization process can take place. Thirdly, we ensure persons are regularized, or we assist with the regularization process by conducting subdivision surveys, by engaging commission land surveyors, and we follow up with the legal department to ensure that the titles are splintered, and then after that we do the valuations before we send it to the social services unit for market.
All right. So, Mr. Haldane, I know you've given us quite a mouthful today. There's a lot of information here for us to consider. And I see by all that you have said that your branch is really, or your section is really working hard. Because I know that you go out, you go to places like the grill, You go far and out, you know. I see some photos of you guys going through bushes and all of that. So I know that you're doing a good job. How can the public access the services of your branch?
Well, they can call the ministry and ask for the land administration unit, and the ministry's numbers are 876-926-1590, and the extension that guides you to the land administration unit is extension 2345.
Thank you so very much, Sir Haldane. And just as a recap, who are the persons who will need to call your branch again?
Okay, those persons that are occupying lands informally that you believe to be owned by government, you can call us, whether it is owned by the Commissioner of Lands or the Minister of Housing. At least you can call us to clarify and to determine whether or not your area is up for regularization. Also, persons who purchase lots in the ministry scheme and have not received their titles can also call to find out what is the situation with the titles.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Haldane. And of course, listeners, we will be giving you some more information on land titling because we know that there are many, many titles in the vault and we need to get those out. So thank you once again, Sir Haldane, and keep up the good work. All right.
Thank you too. Thank you.
Well, guys, guess what? Regularize your land soon, and it is Plastic-Free Summer.
Tell them cut the plastic, cut it before things get drastic. Educate Jamaica, that a few with tactic. Yes, the reusable, no to single use. The youths them a practice. So dash with that. Make we have a plastic-free summer. Single use business we no want. The ocean no want fi taste plastic waste. So make we find more sustainable ways to make sure. Say we have a plastic-free summer. Protect the environment where we have done ya. Play your part, use plastic smart with the plastic-free summer. Yeah, so we a start.
A message from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
Welcome to What's Happening, straight out of the MEGJC, where we stay up to the time and make you know what going on in the ministry. From the latest updates to the freshest initiatives, we're there for give you the scoop. So make you take a seat, kick back, and get ready for hear all the things that are going on in this segment of What's Happening.
Tell them cut the plastic, cut it before things get drastic. Educate Jamaica.
You don't really think Plastic-Free Summer done yet? We've been busy inspiring change with engaging content that highlights the shocking impact of plastic pollution on our land, oceans, and beaches. Internally, we have fine-tuned the art of turning trash into treasure with our Bring Your Own Bag BYOB competition. And lastly, added a microsite that will tell you all you need to know about sustainable solutions. But that's not all. Look out for a flash mob in Half a Tree, Western School Tour, and our contribution to International Coastal Cleanup Day, all happening in September. This summer, let's rewrite history, join the Plastic-Free Summer campaign today, and let your actions shape a cleaner world for all.
So dash with that. Make we have a plastic-free summer. Single use.
Thank you, Javon. And while we're talking about being eco-conscious, let's talk about our upcoming Signature Day, which is on September 16, where we will be recognizing International Ozone Day and International Coastal Cleanup Day. And for our Coastal Cleanup Day, we will be partnering with one of our environmental agencies, the National Environment and Planning Agency, on their cleanup activities. Follow them at NEPA Jamaica for more information. To stay connected and updated about the latest happenings in the ministry, be sure to follow our social media pages on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at MEGJC_JM. That's MEGJC_JM. And that concludes today's segment of What's Happening. See you next time.
Well, folks, this has been MEGJC101. Once again, thank you for tuning in. We hope that you have learned much more about the ministry, especially the housing portfolio. However, if after this episode you have any questions, just leave a comment below or on our social media pages. We will be sure to answer your questions in our next episode. Also, remember to follow, like, share, and subscribe to our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages at MEGJC_JM. Oh, and remember too that it's a plastic-free summer. Until next time, I'm your host, Davy Clyde. Walk good.